Hello friends, and welcome to a Wider World episode of Last Night's Table. During these Wider World segments, I like to explore some of the setting in our main Dungeons & Dragons game, and today's theme is all about wizards. Now, wizard is a class in D&D, but sometimes it's important to note the distinction between a class name and what somebody is known as playing. One of the examples that people often give is with rogues. You don't look at somebody picking pockets and tumbling through fights and say, that's a rogue. You might call them a thief, or a swashbuckler, or something like that. So then, what is a wizard? There is actually a place for them in the setting. People remark about wizards of old and point out wizard towers, or have expectations of going to wizardry school. To be considered a wizard, one must meet a number of criteria. They must do magic, they must study hard, and they must possess a sagely beard and funny hat. Okay, number 3 isn't a hard requirement, but it is funny how wizards tend to gravitate towards that image. I guess the key takeaway is that wizards are people who study the intricacies and laws of magic and use those studies to weave spells. Most of the time, this is how I explain the differences in concept between spellcasters to new players too. Wizards get magic through study, sorcerers get it from the power within, and warlocks are gifted their powers as part of some deal. Now, just a minute ago, I did say that a class doesn't define what a character is known as, and that's still technically true here. I once played a wild magic sorcerer who was a wizard student, only they were really bad at their homework, so they kept having accidents. You could probably do something similar with a Pact of the Tome Warlock or an Eldritch Knight Fighter by keeping the mechanics of the class and the flavor of a wizard. The common thread between all wizards is that they must study magic, and in my setting there used to be a lot of wizards because I really enjoy playing them. So if they all have to study magic in order to use it, where did they go to study it? Well, there's 3 ways you could reasonably assume that a player becomes a wizard. First, they could be self-taught, and this would be pretty rare, but supposing they found some treatises on arcane research and were a huge nerd, then I guess I could see it happening. Second, you could have a mentor-apprentice relationship. In Landaport, this is the most common approach to wizardry, although such people are not often named wizards. Rather, they tend to be craftsmen who manufacture magical items. I'd consider this the NPC wizard approach, and is also common with the artificer class as well. The third and most traditional way that one would become a wizard is through formal instruction at some kind of academy. If you're still waiting for your letter to Hogwarts, then I suppose you consider this avenue yourself. And indeed, most wizards with a capital W in my setting went through academic training. Being an academy-trained wizard put you in a special place in society. You were elevated. You literally possessed the power to change reality to suit your whims. Yet at the same time, there was this expectation to serve the common folk. This social contract was respected for ages, until one day it wasn't. And for this reason, being an academy-trained wizard in the capital cities of Landaport or Dorlandhold makes you a pariah. Okay, so what happened? Well, like all good stories, we have to go back to the beginning, and a little ways before that too. When I was getting the Landaport setting ready for my first game, I had been reading a lot of fantasy. The stories that were sticking out to me often had some sort of wizard in them, and they were usually a bit of a goofball. Well, I wanted one of those goofballs, so I put a shop in Landaport called Wallydriz's Wondrous Wares. The owner and proprietor, the eponymous Wallydriz, was to be Landaport's resident goofball, and goofball he was. The social contract that wizards would serve was respected. Wallydriz was a purveyor of both healing potions and self-sweeping brooms. But he also had a number of misleading oddities, things like the Ring of Invisibility, a ring that turns invisible when worn, or the Rock of Returning, a 10-pound stone that no matter where you place it ends up in your backpack. Wallydriz was a fixture of Landaport, and really the face of what was wizardly in the city. He was all about curiosities and convenience, and the people loved that even if they didn't really understand the point of the Wand of Create Wand of Create Wand. In addition to being the premier spot to get trinkets to amaze your friends with, Wallydriz's Wondrous Wares was also the entrance to the Wizard Academy. Exiting through the supply room of the shop opened a portal to the school. The Wizard Academy was like a college campus where the 8 schools of magic could be studied in harmony. To the uninitiated, those schools are Conjuration, Necromancy, Evocation, Abjuration, Transmutation, Divination, Enchantment, and Illusion. Each discipline had a head mage appointed, with one headmaster overseeing them all. The headmaster of the Landaport Wizard Academy was one Azalweird, who had administered the academy for half a century. Azalweird was pretty aloof. His role was administrative, and therefore he didn't have a direct hand in much of the teaching. However, some 20 years before the current day, there was a demonic incursion in Landaport. The invasion was resolved in a matter of moments by a group of adventurers who happened to be in the area, but Azelweird felt that things could have easily gone sideways there. To this end, he instated a new head mage, a man by the name of Tracy Gould, who would instruct students in the combative arcane arts. Now, instruction at a wizard academy is steeped in arcane tradition and tends to evolve at a glacial pace, kind of like Italian cuisine. The academic world saw this new discipline as an affront to the generation before, and there were concerns about turning wizards into soldiers, when largely wizardry was a peaceful pursuit. However, the students were excited by the prospect of something new, and many of them flocked to Tracy's class, easily making him the most popular instructor. It's difficult to learn to fight without being able to practice, so the head mages of the other disciplines would contribute their services where they could. Necromancers could raise zombies and skeletons to practice on. Transmuters could create fighting golems, and conjurers could summon creatures and fiends for sparring. The wide variety of adversaries to practice on championed the philosophy behind Tracy's fighting style. One's martial prowess supersedes their magical ability, and magic should be used to augment your fighting ability rather than as a replacement for it. And so, Tracy taught a generation of Lannisport academics to become muscle wizards. Tracy's regimen wasn't without cost, however. Keeping the academy flush with fiends, golems, and zombies requires a ton of magical reagents, and those don't come cheap. Azelweird conspired with the other head mages to broker an alliance with the Thieves Guild of Lannisport. They proposed a scheme where the wizards could transport weakened fiends left over from sparring practice to local businesses. The Thieves Guild could show up in force and dispatch the creature before it caused too much harm. Of course, the Thieves Guild would be taking a cut from the business for saving them and kick it back to the Wizards Academy. Essentially, they created a high fantasy protection racket. They did this for some time, and since Lannisport had come under threat of demonic incursion in recent history, the people ate it up. It's also incredibly unfortunate that a large number of tieflings had started to appear in Lannisport around this time. Their arrival was also attributed to the giant portal to hell that had opened up in the streets, however briefly that was. It's for this reason that anti-fiendish sentiment became rooted in Lannisport, and the tiefling minority has suffered for it ever since. It wasn't long into the protection racket that a group of well-meaning adventurers made an appearance, the Stormbrewers. These adventurers witnessed an alleged attack by a fiend who was dispatched by the Thieves Guild. They investigated the incident and learned of the link to the Wizards Academy. One of the Stormbrewers, known as Gideon, was an academy-trained wizard himself, so he let the party in on the academy's secret location. They went to confront the wizards, which ultimately resulted in the death of Tracy Gould, the exile of Azelweird and the head mages, and an explosion in Wally Drizz's Wondrous Wares that shuttered the business permanently. The Thieves Guild was dealt with as well. Their leader was dispatched and replaced with another member of the Stormbrewers, a gnome girl by the name of Zoosh. She steered the guild away from violent crime, and they now still currently operate under a sort of pacifistic Robin Hood ethos. They only rob those who can afford what they lose. Anyhow, word got out about the scandal at the academy, and the people of Lannisport have distrusted wizards ever since. But Lannisport isn't the only state to have wizard woes, and to understand why the rest of the world has issues with them, we have to look at the government of the Dwarven Kingdom of Dorlenhold. I could take a much deeper dive on Dorlenhold than is necessary right now, so I'm going to save that for another episode. To summarize, Dorlenhold is a monarchy that passes its sovereign rule down through lines of succession. The dwarves respect this, provided their ruler is both capable and just. So the ruler of Dorlenhold keeps a number of ministers as advisors. The three chief advisors relate to military, industry, and magic. While the line of succession is not very volatile in Dorlenhold, these ministers' positions are subject to terms of 10 years, which is a long time for us, but not such a long time for dwarves. After which time, each minister must remain champion in a trial to test their prowess. For the Archmage of Dorlenhold, this requires a display of arcane power, and only a few challengers are accepted each decade. Dwarven sensibilities tend towards tradition and order. For this reason, the position of Archmage had been filled by an academy-trained wizard unbroken for 1,000 years. There was even an academy directly in the city for prospective students. The most recent wizard to fulfill the role was a human by the name of Zalidru, and he held the position for over 100 years. That's an obscenely long time for a human to give to one job, but I guess wizards are made of tougher stuff. Anyhow, the Stormbrewers enter the scene again. They needed a dwarven treasure to save a friend, and having been denied it by the king Carl Gildenbrow, they set out to try and steal it anyway. They broke into the vault and found it was already missing. but that doesn't stop them from getting arrested and charged with this theft. The Stormbrewers get split up here as some of them are able to elude capture and others are held for trial. One of the accused was a gnome sorcerer by the name of Mookie Flash Timbers. The Flash Timbers are sorcerers of immense power. Mookie's dad was actually a contender for the seat of Archmage and was supposed to go up against Zalidru himself before he mysteriously disappeared. Now, Zalidru was presiding over Mookie's trial, so I guess you could say they're both deeply suspicious of the other. The rest of the Stormbrewers who are privileged with freedom for the moment were looking for some kind of evidence to exonerate their friends, and they found themselves a smoking gun, evidence that Zalidru had Flash Timbers Sr. assassinated before the trial. They used this evidence to declare Zalidru cannot be trusted to run this trial impartially, and indeed has broken Dwarven law by having his opponent killed in cold blood. Zalidru fled the scene and barricaded himself inside the Dorlandhold Academy. The Stormbrewers eventually succeeded in breaking in, but not before Zalidru managed to escape into the wind. They did, however, find that he was in possession of the artifact they were looking for, which definitely proved their innocence. First Lanaport, and now Dorlandhold. It seems wizards can't be trusted anywhere. So posited Korik the Sorcerer, who was for a while our campaign's big bad evil guy. Now, the whole setup behind Korik is a subject that would take several episodes to go through, so suffice to say that he has beef with wizards and the Stormbrewers. While the Stormbrewers were getting ready for their final battle with Korik, they end up getting approached by none other than Azalweird, the headmaster in exile of the Lanaport Wizards Academy. They brokered an uneasy alliance, but in doing so uncover a bombshell. Azalweird, Walidriz, and Zalidru are all the same person. Indeed, they're all anagrams of each other's names, and it becomes unclear which one is just an alias or how many more this wizard might have. It also points out that their goals cross national borders, and it's difficult to discern just how far their reach extends. After defeating Korik, the Stormbrewers felt it was high time to retire from adventuring. Gideon, formerly an academy-trained wizard, took over Azalweird's role as a new headmaster for an academy. Its location remained secret, and they handpicked their candidates based on their magical potential. Gideon's academy, despite having all new instructors and him being a genuinely good dude, has this sort of shadow over it. The world had heard of Azalweird and Zalidru's scandals, so who was to say that Gideon wouldn't turn out the same way? 20 years have passed since these events, and in this time wizards have been less proud to show their place. They're often still public figures, but instead of being people that are looked up to, they've become people to be viewed with suspicion. And there you have it, a recent history on wizards. Thanks for watching the show. If you liked it, go ahead and give this video a like or subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions or would like me to discuss something in my next episode, feel free to leave a comment below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.